Good afternoon and welcome to the panel session of this Chairman's Council. I'm Ken Jimbo. I'm a president of the Asia-Pacific Initiative and the managing director here at the iHouse. I am extremely delighted today to welcome all of you, especially the distinguished representatives from Japan, the United States, and the Republic of Korea to discuss the significance and the outcome of the Trilateral Summit that took place in Camp David on August 18th. And I'm sure that Ambassador was actually there to deal with all the negotiations and agreements that took place in Camp David. And this Trilateral Summit and the agreement that we made among three leaders were something unimaginable until recently. And thanks to so many political commitments, innovative efforts, and amazing diplomacy that was going on at all levels of the government. And these three panelists were one of the main figures behind the scenes. And there is the emergence of the new horizons in relations between three countries. So to explore this, I would like to start off by having a brief stage-setting remarks from the three panelists. And first, I would like to ask Ambassador Emanuel how we got to this point and what do you think is the significance of this Trilateral Summit? Over to you.
Well, first of all, I want to thank James and the iHouse for organizing this, taking the idea. But before I called you, I called my good friend, my colleague from South, said I don't want to offer idea that you don't want to do. And I want to thank him for saying immediately yes very quickly. And also the MOFA and the Japanese Foreign Ministry. So I think a couple things, there are a couple streams that kind of come together. First is you having, I think it's very important, a level of trust among the three leaders. If you don't have trust, you're going to do the bare minimum. If you have trust, you're going to go farther, deeper, and longer. Second, all three countries in the last year have been, in one way or another, targeted by China, targeted by Russia, targeted by China and Russia together, from military exercises, economic coercion, etc. And I think there was an appreciation that we're stronger standing together than we were standing individually trying to confront those challenges. And we produced a document in our embassy, shared it at the White House, but also in the last year, there had been 47 trilateral meetings at heads of state, at Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Secretary Joint Chiefs, Secretary Treasury, just go down the line, and deputy level, where not only is there a trilateral, but as all of us know, there's a bilateral meeting. You build, after 47 of those, you start to know each other. You can start to finish the other person's sentences. And there's a level of trust and comfortability and exploration. And this is never usually an asset of the United States. We actually showed restraint. We didn't try to interject ourselves. But when the Japanese parties and the Korean parties were meeting, we stood back rather than trying to get in and have everybody talk through us. Talk directly, hear each other, listen. And you have to go both to President Yun and to Prime Minister Kishida. They expanded themselves farther after a level of trust between the two and took great courage and great political risk. It's not easy, but there's also a tremendous amount of benefit to that. So I think, I say this jokingly, I don't think President Xi and President Putin get as much credit as they deserve for what happened at Camp David. On the other hand, I have a rule about politics, which is you never want to look back and say, I woulda, coulda, or shoulda. A year ago, I said to Jake Sullivan, we were all meeting, and I said, you're going to look at this moment. In 10 years, do you want to say you tried? Or in 10 years, you said, it really wasn't ripe. And I said, and I personally believe that the politics is ripe for something different. The second thing, and this is Kurt Campbell, who's on the White House staff as National Security Advisor for Asia. At Hiroshima, in the lobby of the hotel, we were waiting, and he and I both talked to Jake Sullivan about A, the time for a trilateral. The president should call for it, which is what happened at Hiroshima. And B, that we should make it different. And I want to also then say at the trilateral, the national security advisors here in Tokyo, there was a pretty much from both Japan and Korea that if we did this, they wanted to do it, everybody agreed to do it, but it had to have something more dramatic. And that became the seedling for the idea to do it at Camp David, given the history of Camp David, going back to Churchill visiting Roosevelt there. And so I'm trying to be very, I know I'm not being short, so I should shut up right now. But that's a lot of different things that happened over the last year. And I would say one last thing, and I want to close it. In a lot of times our work, you kind of advance by inches. Sometimes there's a moment in which you advance by 10 meters. I want credit that I used meters, not yards, okay? You advance, and I think after Camp David, the world is different in the Indo-Pacific than it was the day before Camp David. And I think if we do our work forward, there's no going back.
Well, thank you, Ambassador Emanuel. And certainly that three countries have seized the opportunity. Several years back, that when Japan-Korea relationship was jeopardized, it was such unimaginable to have three leaders get together in Camp David to talk about the future prospects of the cooperative relationship among three countries. In that context, I think it is worthwhile to talk about the context of the Japan-Korea relationship and how the trilateral relationship has been perceived. And we'll have a best person to ask. And Ambassador Yun has been generous enough to use Japanese to offer his remark. それでは、ユン大使お願いします。
ありがとうございます。今日本当にこんなに素晴らしい機会ができたことをジェームスさんに感謝いたします。またこの最初にレームからエマニュエル大使からこの企画を聞いたときにこれは本当に素晴らしい企画だと思いまして、今日こういうことができたことはやっぱり大使のいろんな努力のおかげさまだと思っています。ありがとうございます。私は着任してから1年過ぎましたけれども、最初に着任した時に一番朝早く電話をしてくれた方がレムです。そこからちょっと力を強く思ってたんですけれども、実は時期は韓日関係が最悪だったので、私が来て、いや日本社会全体がそんなに韓国に対して冷たくなることもあり得るんだということを初めて分かりました。でも冗談のように今年入ってから特にここ4、5ヶ月の間で両国関係急進展しまして、ここはやっぱりユン・ソンニョル大統領、韓国の大統領の決断、またそこに対する岸田総理の号砲、勇気のある報道だったと思うんですけれども、それをもって今両国関係が急進展しました。両国関係が正常化することにつれて、我々本当に今までできなかったことが実現しつつあることを気づくことができたんですね。つまりとりあえずは韓日関係の急進展はこの東アジアの戦略的な地形に大きな変化をもたらしていると思っています。その表れというものがやっぱりキャンプ・デイビッドの三国の首脳会談だったと思いますね。キャンプ・デイビッドというのはやっぱり現代の外交史において本当に大変な交渉があったところですね。中東の平和とか核軍縮、あえてそういうキャンプ・デイビッドというところにバイデン大統領が韓国の大統領、日本の総理を招いて会談をやったというのはやっぱり三国の首脳会談の重要性ということを物語っているんじゃないかと思ってますね。特に韓国、日本、アメリカの間でこの前までは12回ぐらいの3者の 首脳会談あったんですけれども、そこはあくまでも国際舞台で、国際会議の中でのちょっと三国が集まった首脳が集まった時期にそこを借りて30分40分ぐらいの簡単な、特に大体北朝鮮問題を論じるそういう首脳会談だったんですね。ただ今度のキャンプ・デイビッドの会談は本当に本格的に最初のそういう会談でした。いろんな成果があるんですけれども、やはり我々三国の協力の戦略的な協力の幅というものが安全保障、経済、先端の技術、海洋、ヘルス問題、ありとあらゆる問題を議題にしてるんですね。また昔の我々の議題というのは北朝鮮ばかりだったのが、今度はグローバルのインド太平洋に拡大したことですね。でも私にとって一番大きな成果というのは、今までちょっとタブ視されたこと、日米間の本当の意味の戦略的な協力ができなかったことが実現されたということですね。特にキャンプス・デイビッドの原則、スピリット、プリンシプル、コミットメントという3つの文章を見ると、大体ここはひょっとしたら今までできなかったことができるようになったという気がしました。本当に日米間の韓日米の3カ国の戦略的なパートナーシップの開幕でしょうか。新しい時代の開幕のように考えました。その中でこういう話があるんですね。つまり共通の利益と安保に対する挑戦、挑発、そして脅威に対して即時に直ちに我々3カ国は共同で協議するんだという内容があるんですけれども、要するにそこはやっぱり一方が攻撃された時には3国が迅速に早い段階で対応を協議するということになっているんです。ここは今まで我々できなかったそういう3カ国の協力で、そこが今ほとんど実験化されつつあることに関しては本当に大変素晴らしいことではないかと思います。もちろんこういう3カ国の協力というものが今後どうなるかに関して疑問を持つ人もいるかもしれないです。やっぱり国内政治の問題、政権が交代すればどうするかという疑問もあるんですけれども、そういうこともあって我々はこの3カ国の戦略的な協力を制度化するために、首脳会談も年に1回は必ずやるとか、外務長官とか、あるいは防衛大臣とか、あるいは産業大臣とか、そういう場合のそういう会談も制度化したんですね。もちろん合同訓練も今制度化することになっているんです。ただ一番我々はこのあれに対して私は非常に楽観的に見るのは、やっぱりもちろんいろいろ国内の問題があるかもしれないんですけれども、我々が直面している戦略的な環境、北朝鮮は核ミサイルを除去しているし、またウクライナでは戦争は今引き続きああいう戦争状況ですし、台湾海峡のそういう緊張が高める、そういう中でやっぱりますます三国の協力の必要性は高まることになるだろうと。そうすると我々の国益からも3カ国の協力というものはもはや取り戻すことじゃないかと思いますね。それで私は三国の協力というものを楽観的に見てます。以上です。
ユン大使ありがとうございます。日韓関係に長年尽力されてきたユン大使の実感のこもったご発言だったように思います。ユン大使も触れたこの日米韓の共同宣言、キャンプ・デービッド原則の中で、このコミットメント・トゥ・コンサルトっていう表現があります。この3カ国が共通の課題に直面をしたときに、まず会って協議をするという枠組みに対してコミットしていくということが非常に重要な精神の基盤にあるということも、ユン大使から、強調されたように思います。それではファーストラウンド最後、四方さんよろしくお願いいたします。
Well, thank you very much for your kindly inviting me to this very special occasion along with these two distinguished ambassadors, who are most active in town. For my initial remarks, let me just touch upon the significance of this trilateral summit at Camp David. We are all facing an increasingly challenging regional and global security environment, and this trilateral summit is really significant as making a new era of trilateral partnership. The rule-based open international order is being tested around the globe, including in Asia. This presents a historic opportunity to fortify our strategic trilateral collaboration at the start of a new chapter together, anchored by Japan's robust bilateral relationships with US and South Korea. And as both Ambassador Emanuel and Ambassador Yun mentioned, the level of trust among Prime Minister Kishida, President Biden, and President Yun is the foundation for this promotion of trilateral cooperation. Let me just elaborate on some of salient points from this trilateral meeting, summit in Camp David. Let me just focus on three aspects. First, we will elevate our trilateral security cooperation to new heights. Examples include annual multi-domain trilateral defense exercises, or we have taken major initial steps on the real-time sharing of North Korean missile warning data, aiming to operationalize this mechanism by the end of this year. We will establish a trilateral working group to address North Korea's illicit cyber activities, which fund its unlawful WMD and ballistic missile program. Second, we will expand the scope of our trilateral cooperation. And this cooperation includes our cooperation on approach to North Korea. We confirmed our commitment to enhancing our deterrence and response capabilities in the region while strengthening our collaboration for full enforcement of sanctions. Prime Minister Kishida is also grateful for the staunch support from President Biden and President Yun concerning the abduction issue. At the same time, we share the understanding that the path to dialogue with North Korea remains open. Number two, we will be collaborating at the forum, including at the UN Security Council, when all our three nations will be serving as UN Security Council members in 2024. We will be also collaborating in pursuit of a free and open Indo-Pacific, and we have agreed to collaborate through trilateral Indo-Pacific dialogue and trilateral development policy dialogue. Also, we decided to coordinate our regional capacity building efforts in a new trilateral maritime security cooperation framework. Lastly, more in the domain of economic security, we will advance our cooperation on crucial and emerging technologies and resilience of our supply chains. Third, we'll be developing a framework for a multi-layered trilateral collaboration. This will solidify the foundation to steadily bolster our trilateral collaboration. We have agreed, as was mentioned, to hold a trilateral summit at least once a year. Similarly, our foreign ministers, defense ministers, national security advisors, and other ministers will also meet at least annually. Very lastly, although it is not directly related to security or trilateral summit, I think it is significant that both President Biden and President Yun shown understanding of Japan's decision to discharge treated water from Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station. I'm happy to report that initial water testing supports the International Atomic Energy Agency's assessment that the release will have a negligible radiological impact on people and the environment. In conclusion, this historic trilateral summit underscores a collective commitment to holding the rule-based open international order, and fortifying our strategic partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Shikata-san. So I would like to divide the subject into three parts: security, economic security domain, and eventually the Indo-Pacific strategy, if we have sufficient time to deal with those three subjects. I'd like to start asking Ambassador Yun, if I use the Japanese once again. ユン大使が最近の日本経済新聞の寄稿の中で新たな日米韓協力の在り方が各国の国内政治に影響されずに安定的に定着することを目指したい。で、先ほどおっしゃられたように、北朝鮮の核戦力が高度化し、ロシアによるウクライナ侵攻が起き、台湾海峡の緊張が高まっている、非常にコンプリヘンシブなこの緊張感の環境の中で、この日米韓3カ国の協力の必要性が大きくなるのは必至であるというふうに論じています。これユン大使が述べられたように日米韓関係安全保障面においても単に北朝鮮は依然としてコアにあると思いますけれども、それよりも広い文脈で日米韓が安全保障でも協力を深めていくことが大事だというふうに述べられたと理解をしています。このあたりユン大使のお考えもう一度聞かせていただいてよろしいでしょうか。
今度のキャンプデイビッドで一番私が気に入った表現というのは、バイデン大統領が3カ国は一緒にいる時にもっと強くなるんだという言葉があったと思うんですね。実は1950年ですか、その当時のエチソンアメリカの国務長官は有名なエチソンラインで韓国を防御から太平洋の防御ラインから外したんですね。そこから朝鮮戦争が勃発する一つの原因だと言われてるんですね、歴史学者たちは。やっぱり今度のキャンプデイビッドで3カ国が強い安全保障上の連帯を強力な連帯を見せたというのは、私は朝鮮半島のみならずこの地域の安定と平和によってものすごい抑止力になるんだと思うので、事実的な抑止力になると思いますね。特にさっき鹿田さんもおっしゃったんですけれども、北朝鮮今年入ってから10回 ICBM を発射したり、いろんな種類の、ICBM のみならず韓国日本を射程にするそういう戦術のミサイルとか戦域のミサイルも発射してるんですけれども、それに関して我々は十分な抑止力というものがいろいろ疑問があるんですね。例えばICBM ができてアメリカまで本土まで届くような、ニューヨークまで届くようなそういう ICBM が北朝鮮が持つようになったら、果たしてアメリカは東京が北朝鮮の核攻撃を受けた時にやっぱり平壌を報復できるかどうか、そういう疑問からいろんな抑止力に関しての問題点も出たんですけれども、私は今度のキャンプデイビッドの三国のそういういろんな話し合いを見ながら、やっぱり北に関して強力な抑止というものができたと思います。またこの地域においても非常に不確実性というものが高いですね。やっぱり昔20世紀の初め頃みたいに力のパワーポリティクスでしょうか、力の地政学のなんとか機関のような時代において、やっぱりしっかり民主主義とまた自由と法の支配、価値観を共有する三国がしっかり連帯を組むというのは、この地域の安定の平和にものすごく貢献するし、不安定に関しての抑止力になるということだと思います。そこが今度の事実上これからいろんな我々話し合いが必要でしょうね。またいろんな枠組みも必要ですけれども、やっぱり日米韓日米の新しい時代というものが開幕したということだと思います。はい。
ユン大使ありがとうございます。I'd like to ask a follow-up question to Ambassador Emanuel. From U.S. perspective, I think many have argued that if you look at Northeast Asia, that is the one integrated theater. But at the same time, with the historical context, US-Korea alliance, US-Japan alliance has evolved in a parallel manner individually. But there are so many demands that those functions should be integrated in order to, following up to what Ambassador Yun said, for the integrated deterrence will make our collective strength to the issue that we face, starting from North Korea. But the Camp David mentioned something beyond North Korea as well. So how do you think about the prospect of the three countries dealing with what we perceive as the emerging threat in Northeast Asia and then also beyond?
First, all three countries in the last year or last 18 months have issued strategic documents. If you look at those documents, I mean, I'm saying this a little dramatically, but Japan could have written the United States document, we could have written the Korean document, Korean could have written the Japan document. They're very, very complementary, more so than at any other time. And so that was, I think, a core principle. And a view not just of the Taiwan Strait, but a view of the region. And there was also a sense that standing together made our voices, our singular voice, bigger than our three individual voices. Second thing, and I think this is kind of an important point that should be drawn out, each in one way or another have been targeted by China's economic coercion, been targeted by Chinese military exercises in China, and targeted by China-Russia military effort. I think that there's also an understanding that, and this is from the United States perspective, so I'm only speaking, we have a simple but clear strategy. We're a permanent Pacific power and presence, and you can bet long on the United States. China's strategy is pretty much the opposite, which is we're rising, America's dropping, and either you sign up today or we're going to remember your name tomorrow. Now, a lot of people will wear gray flannel suit, smoke pipes, think big thoughts. That's basically it on a strategic standpoint. China's entire strategy for the last 4 years is that Camp David cannot and should not happen. That's why I think that the day after Camp David, the world is different. Now, we have a responsibility not to just have it happen, but to double down, entrench, dig the roots deeper in the process. There's already been a number of conversations in the White House about how to do certain things on the, not only on the implementation, but how to take it a little farther. That to me means when you have the three most powerful economic, political, strategic countries aligned and operating as close to unison as you can get, that has a power that's bigger than the three countries operating independently of each other. And that's either on the diplomatic side, that's either on the political side, that's on the military side, economic side. And all three countries will be on the UN Security Council next year. So beyond the region, the voice, the collaboration, the cooperation take longer. Now, I want to be also clear, it's incumbent on all of us to put the roots down of this deeper so that it survives any one of the three countries' politics and it becomes a mainstay of the foreign policy strategic outlook. I believe that's going to happen, but it's incumbent upon us to work going forward in that effort. In the same way, now you can't have the same kind of 47 meetings that we had in the last year, but we're already discussing how to organize certain things that begin to put the seeds and the roots of this effort deeper into the political DNA and institutions of the three countries. I do think, and I say one last thing, it is not an accident that China's rhetoric about containment turked up significantly when it became apparent what Japan, the United States, and Korea were doing together. They have always talked about containment, but the volume, the scope of what they said, and the kind of intensity of it dramatically increased in the last 4 months. And it's because their entire strategy and I don't want to build everything in and around just China, that's also true about the DPRK, was built around Camp David never ever happening. That's why the strategic plates shifted on August 18th.
Thank you, Ambassador. I'd like to ask Mr. Shikata in a slightly different angle. That's on the DPRK. Prime Minister Kishida has made clear on a number of occasions that DPRK's military provocations and ballistic missile launches are absolutely unacceptable to Japanese security. But at the same time, as you mentioned, that the Prime Minister mentioned that he is determined to meet with Chairman Kim Jong-un face-to-face without any conditions. So can you clarify what type of engagement that the Japanese government is trying to deal with North Korea?
As Ambassador Yun mentioned, during the Trilateral Summit, the three leaders reaffirmed their commitment to enhance regional deterrence and response capabilities for North Korea. Three leaders strongly condemned ballistic missile launches by North Korea. We also confirmed the need to strengthen our collaboration in ensuring the complete implementation of UN sanctions. We also recognized and shared our understanding that the path to dialogue with North Korea remains open. Furthermore, Prime Minister Kishida has once again secured strong support from President Biden and President Yun in support of an immediate resolution of abduction issues. As for Japan, in accordance with the Japan DPRK Pyongyang Declaration, Japan's fundamental policy toward North Korea seeks a comprehensive resolution of outstanding issues, such as abductions, nuclear activities, and missile tests. The ultimate goal is to settle our unfortunate past and pursue the normalization of diplomatic relations between Japan and North Korea. In particular, the issue of the abductions, which we consider as an urgent human rights concern, needs to be solved immediately. Prime Minister Kishida's determination is based on his will to solve these outstanding bilateral issues of concern and to jointly pave the way for a new era. So from this perspective, we will continue to convey his determination and seek to hold high-level dialogues under Prime Minister Kishida's direct supervision to realize summit meeting with North Korea at the earliest opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Shikata, in dealing with this sensitive question. And before opening up the floor, but this could be, I think, a final round that I would like to ask the panelists. Since we have lots of top business leaders here in this room, I'd like to ask the economic security perspective of our trilateral relationship. First, again, to Ambassador Emanuel. One of the highlights of the recent summit was the building robust cooperation in the economic, security, and technology spheres. And joint statement referred to trilateral cooperation on supply chain resilience, particularly on the semiconductors and battery, energy security, biotech, AI, and quantum computing. What a comprehensive coverage that we have identified. So what do you expect the three countries to advance these economic security agendas?
There's not much left in the economy outside of those five things, outside of maybe a coffee shop or something. Well, I'm going to get myself in trouble. It's not the first time, but I haven't told my staff this. And I haven't told my friend and my colleague this, so I'm going to pop this on you right now. But take quantum. At Hiroshima at the G7, the President and the Prime Minister announced a collaboration between the University of Chicago and the University of Tokyo in quantum computing. IBM put 100 million in, and Google put another 50 million. Well, when you have a little more time to read a little more, I noticed that President Yun just announced a quantum project for $2.3 billion. Another way of relating earlier to your question, how do you put the roots of this down deeper? Well, there's nothing preclusive. I mean, there hasn't been any big, they're just working, starting literally in the last 2 months, but about reaching out to a university in Korea, about being that another leg in the stool in the quantum computing area. That would take the most important area that China's trying to invest in, that we're all three trying to invest in. Again, of the three, we have 2 universities, one in the United States, the University of Chicago, a great city, a great university, just like to say that. Tokyo University, a great city and a great university. But the nation and the country of Korea is about to invest in one of the most promising spaces that if you dominate or have a head start, you're going to be part of shaping the future. That's an example. Number 2, we were just talking about this earlier at the table. The United States plays a prominent role in both Japan and Korea's energy security, not just in LNG, but in SMR nuclear, battery research, wind, solar, etc., as do the 2 countries in the United States. I see a major opportunity strategically, not just energy security, but from a strategic perspective of the 3 countries collaborating in the space of LNG, alternative, hydrogen, the type of not only research but application going forward, where all 3 countries can play a major, major role in each other's not only energy security, but the projection of our strategic objective into the Indo-Pacific as a large. So those are 2 examples. One of them now I'm going to get in trouble not having discussed it with anybody else except for right here with a bunch of cameras on there. But I think that those are types of things that carry, look, I mean, you have the 9th largest economy, the 3rd largest economy, and the largest economy in the world. When you combine the capacities of those 3, the muscle, the strength, the entrepreneurship, the dynamism of those 3 economies, it's an unlimited potential of shaping the world and making it a better, a safer world for the type of systems that we all believe in. Capitalism, freedom, and the rule of law, the application to those areas.
Excellent. ユン大使にぜひエマニュエル大使の、今のご発言と関連させてお伺いしたいんですけれども、特にこの韓国の、ハイテク分野でも半導体産業が、世界有数の規模を今誇っていて、韓国政府も最先端技術の振興を積極的に進めているということになってます。で、今後のこの韓国の特にこのハイテク産業戦略とこの志を同じくする国家間、ライクマインデッドステイツとかフレンドシュアリングとかよく概念がいますけれども、韓国から見てこういったこの国家間との協力の役割をどういうふうに位置づけているのか、そのあたりをぜひ教えてください。
韓国は実は経済力よりもっと大きなR&D の努力を今までずっとやってきました。韓国の経済力から見ると世界10位圏ですけれども、R&D は世界5位ですね。世界5位といってもそこはアメリカ、中国、日本、ドイツの次が韓国ですから、GDP の比率から見ると多分イスラエルの次ぐらい、世界2位ぐらいの投資をR&D にやってきました。そこが多分今の韓国の先端技術力の一つの理由かなという気もします。もちろん今新しい韓国の政府もものすごいそこを技術を守るための、あるいは技術をもっと高めるためのいろんな努力をしてるんですね。あと私はさっき三国は一緒にするときに、トゥゲダーのときに一番強くなるんだと、もっと強くなるんだということに、そこが国民に肌で感じるようなことができる一番いい分野というものが、私はこういう経済とか、この先端の技術分野ではないかと思いますね。特に半導体は非常にアメリカ、日本、韓国は相互補完的になっているんです。つまりアメリカは設計に、日本は素材と装備に、韓国は完成品に関していわゆる 強みがあるんですから、三国が協力すれば一番いい結果が出ると思いますね。そこが一つあるし、また韓国にとってもやっぱり安全なサプライチェーンが必要ですね。そのことに関して我々三国はしっかり協力し、また人流のためのいろんな新しい技術、AI とかカントムコンピューティングとか協力する分野というのは私は非常に大きいと思います。はい。
ありがとうございます。So, the final question before opening the floor to Shikata-san, that is about the concept of Indo-Pacific. I think Indo-Pacific has been the gravity concept, and many countries start to plug and play as a platform of the regional cooperation, and that is adopted by so many frameworks. And trilateral cooperation is not the exception. So, why do you think that the Indo-Pacific has such attraction? Japanese government has begun promoting this concept as early as like a 2016 as an official concept, but that now become very much the foundation of our regional engagement policy. So, connecting this Indo-Pacific and trilateral cooperation, what do you think that the potential and where this concept will lead us?
The concept of the FOIP, Free and Open Indo-Pacific, is to maximize the power of our economic growth and potential of the Indo-Pacific region. The region accounts for 60% of the world's population and more than half of the world's economy. This past March, Prime Minister Kishida launched a new plan for FOIP to redouble our efforts in realizing the FOIP in his speech during his visit to India. Why has the FOIP vision expanded to so many countries and regions? The key point may be the free and open part, as well as a shared understanding of the importance of the peace and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific region. The FOIP represents the universal values on which the international community is based, namely freedom and the rule of law, while respecting the diversity of each country. The principles of UN Charter, such as respect for sovereignty, territorial integrity, the peaceful resolution of disputes, and the non-use of force, must be upheld under the FOIP. This concept is becoming increasingly accepted globally, as Professor Jimbo mentioned, especially at the time of geostrategic crossroads. This is because the FOIP encourages the international community to move toward cooperation instead of division and confrontation. At the G7 Hiroshima Summit, Prime Minister Kishida explained Japan's view of FOIP and supported by other participants. In this regard, at Camp David, the three leaders committed themselves to expanding their cooperation both within the Indo-Pacific and beyond, transcending various sectors and elevating our shared grand ambitions to new horizons. As concrete measures to implement the FOIP, we will launch an annual trilateral Indo-Pacific dialogue to coordinate the implementation of their Indo-Pacific approaches and to identify new areas for common action. In addition, we'll coordinate regional capacity building efforts to ASEAN, Southeast Asian countries, and Pacific Island countries to ensure that they are mutually reinforcing and maximally beneficial to our valued partners, which includes capacity building efforts in cybersecurity and financial integrity, and through our new trilateral maritime security cooperation framework. With this emerging and expanding support for FOIP across the globe, I'm convinced that FOIP will bear more significant fruits among our like-minded partners in collaboration with the United States, with the Republic of Korea for years to come. Thank you.
I didn't want to go, I don't know if the question will come, so I want to make one, I think, relevant point. Look, I don't have to tell this group, the relationship between Japan and Korea is a complicated one. I think nobody should lose sight in the shadows of the Ukrainian war. Russia-Ukraine has a complicated history. It's not exactly my family comes from Odessa. How significant it was that two countries, obviously the United States and President Biden specifically played a very significant role. But two countries could look at the 21st century, see opportunities, see collaboration and unity and somewhat dialogue being the narrative to seize that future and shape it, versus a place in Europe that is confined by the 17th and 18th century that led to the largest land war since World War II in Europe. And in all the analysis which I've read, I haven't read everything in both Japan and Korea. I think I've read a lot in the United States, mainly looking for my own quotes. That's a joke. But on a serious note, how much what happened at Camp David, stylistically, politically, strategically, stands in contrast to what's happening today in Europe and specifically in Ukraine, specifically by an aggressor, Russia, resolving historical issues through the largest land war in Europe since World War II, where two countries, yes, a complicated history, but because of courage of two leaders, took a different path, both to resolution, a different path to cooperation, and a different path to seeing an opportunity rather than a problem. And I think it stands in many, many ways, most importantly, narrative-wise, in contrast to what you're seeing today. And I think in a world that sometimes has nothing but dark clouds, there was a period of time that, in fact, the sunlight came in. And I'm saying this as somebody that obviously doesn't have all the history. I'm coming as an outsider. I'm coming as an American that doesn't have that kind of historical root. May give me the opportunity to see something different. But I will say, to a world that's pretty dark, that sees constantly conflict, constantly dark things, bad things happening, and the breakdown of an international system, not just one we created, but one that we have all abided by, and see three leaders. All of us have different complicated histories with each other. I stay here as the US Ambassador in Japan. That our three countries, with President Yun, President Biden, and Prime Minister Kishida, chose a path that's different than is the dominant narrative today. That should not get lost on anybody. How significant a statement that was of a different approach to the future versus one that's condemned to the past and being dominated by the past.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador, with that very encouraging remarks. This is the end of the on the record session. And so the audio visual team, right. So audio visual team will stop recording during the Q&A with the audience. So you can be as frank as possible. So I'd like to open the floor, and I recognize